the statement race isn't real? Because that is what I used to say.
It was related to, I think you said it right after that. But like, yeah, it was related to the fact that race isn't real. Like, um, let's just start with that. Let's actually just start with that statement. Race isn't real, and talk about how it would hit people who are racialized differently different. Um, so I'll give you kind of my viewpoint on that, or if you want to go first, I have been talking a little bit more than usual.
Well,
So
I like I'm okay talking about that. I want to be clear. I don't think that's a useful thing to say anymore. Like
okay, well,
to
tell
just
us about how you went from saying it all the time to realizing that it wasn't a useful thing to say, and why you made the change.
well, I didn't really know how to say it differently. I think something that would be more accurate is that race isn't true. Like what I was pointing at is that race is not actually an inherent quality of a human being, um, and that is actually important. Like that actually matters in healing and taking the blocks out of the way of seeing each other as human beings. Like if we're in a context of you're a race and I'm a race, and that means something, like at least it means that we're different. And it comes from the place of there's a hierarchy. Like that's how it was created. So when we're relating and we have in our minds, or we're wearing the glasses that you're a race and I'm a race, it gets in the way of we're both human beings. And so that's what I want to, that was like behind race isn't real. That's what I want to bring to people's attention, that we're wearing these glasses and we can take them off. And like, not in all context, because a lot of people are like, put those back on, or they're like, we're wearing them. Everyone around you is wearing them. So it's really hard to just be like, I took them off. And it's probably it's easier in most contexts, I think, for a white person to do that. Um, but it depends on the context entirely. Like in
Yeah,
some
I mean, I
contexts,
don't even know if that's true,
like,
but
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I don't. It just it tends to affect people differently anyway. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, there's so many variations, right? It's very difficult to make any kind of universal statement about people's experience with the subject of race because race is heavily influenced by geography, right? Where you grow up, what neighborhood, what country, what environment, what kind of values do the people you grow up around have? What values do they pass on to you, right? And then, do you stay in the same environment? Do you move? Do you see different environments? What's your actual life experience on the subject of race? I grew up in a neighborhood with all black people until I was 10. Then I moved into a neighborhood with all white people after that. That's not a usual, typical growing up experience, which probably also allowed me to gain understanding of the subject of race, and think about it more critically. For myself and my own taking the glasses off, right? I just, like I told you, I was very stubborn with it, even though I was experiencing the negative consequences of race. Like I was delusional, like I was delusional because that's what I was taught to be. And even though I was able to recognize that, even before I fully recognized it, I like there were moments where I realized that I was, making excuses for racism or ignoring it when it was blatant, and when I realized that people around me were doing that, even people who were close friends of mine, and that everyone was kind of play acting this phony, illusory racial environment that didn't actually exist. And I was living in reality, experiencing these things. It was painful, right? It was painful. And it was painful because either you have to accept that that's what's going on, which is absolutely insane, and not a pleasant way of existing with others, or maybe you're just overblowing it, maybe you're just like reading it wrong, maybe they meant something else, or maybe you're the problem, or what, any number of rationalizations that people come up with to explain it away. And in an environment where everyone is explaining racism away and has been for generations, um, you know I try to give my past self grace with the stubbornness that I held on to it, and I try to remember that person I was when I speak to other people about it, because we all have to go through that process, whether we do it quickly or slowly, because that's how things were set up. It was not set up for people to understand their racial environment, to understand what it means to be racialized, to understand racial hierarchy, to understand the consequences of that, to interrogate whether your values are aligned with that or not. All of that has been systematically, generationally suppressed within us. So there's layers of where our humanity is suppressed, you know? Yes, by using the language of race, by using these categories that are, you know, imaginary and contain negative connotations and falsehoods within them and stereotypes. And then there's the issue of, let's make sure that no one can ever unravel this knot. Make sure that no one can ever figure out that they've been lied to, that they've been taught a false history of race, that they've been made to believe some story about race that isn't really true, and they've been and that has been for an intentional reason that all leads back to money and power, and results in dehumanization of everyone involved. So, yes,
My friend calls it normalized insanity.
that's precisely what it is. It's
Yeah.
normalized insanity. I mean, I think we could just look at our present political situation to see that that does seem to be ruling the day these days, is normalized insanity. I like that.
Yeah, like just that we all believe that we are races and we treat each other according to whatever our stereotypes are and the rules of the day. You know, there still are laws about limitations and prescriptions based on race, and they've changed quite a bit, obviously, over the years. But the insanity is supported by our law books, so it makes it seem really real. I mean, it is real in that way because it's having real impacts.
That's right. The impacts are real. That's what's
Right.
real about it. It's a very strange nuance for people, right? You're saying something's not real, but the impact of it is real. How could that possibly happen?
Well, and that's why I don't say that anymore. That race isn't real. You know, that was in my detached place of like analysis. But you know, that doesn't work obviously when the impacts are real and people feel that. And I obviously didn't feel the impacts of me being white, or the impacts that there weren't super noticeable to me, and it didn't become apparent that it was really disconnecting for me to be in the context of you're white, um, until recently. And it still can be like hard to articulate those impacts.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're still newly conscious of the fact that these impacts, there's a whole universe of them, right? I mean, the universe is practically infinite of what you're investigating now. So give yourself a break, first of all, right? Because you're exploring an infinite universe, sir. Thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support, and see you next time.